Scholar had just proposed using Sunny as monster bait, leaving him bleeding on the path to draw Mountain King away while he and Hero escaped. Sunny had seen it coming. What he didn't know yet was which way Hero would fall. Hero was looking down, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Whatever moved behind those calm eyes, Sunny couldn't read it. The silence stretched. Then the soldier spoke. "I have only one question." Both of them held their breath. "You said one of us must be sacrificed to save the other two. Why him? From where I stand, you are far closer to the grave." Sunny almost smiled. He turned to Scholar and waited. The older slave didn't miss a beat. "Before the first attack, the boy was already bleeding from your senior's whip. During the attack, he was drenched in a dead man's blood. His cloak came from a corpse. The boy already reeks of it. Keeping him alive puts us all at risk. That is why he is the obvious choice." The smile died before it reached Sunny's face. "Curse you and your big brain." Hero listened. His expression darkened with each word. Then he looked at Sunny, something dangerous settling in his eyes. "That is true." Sunny's mouth went dry. Cold sweat tracked down his spine. He tensed. And then Hero smiled. "Your logic is nearly unassailable," he said, drawing his sword. "However, you failed to account for one thing." Scholar raised an eyebrow, doing his best to look calm. "What might that be?" The smile left Hero's face entirely. In its place was something cold and absolute. "That I know who you are, Your Grace. I know what you have done and how you came to be a slave. A single one of your crimes would be reason enough to want you dead. So if anyone here deserves to be sacrificed, it is you." Scholar's composure cracked. "But the smell of blood." "Don't worry. I'll make you bleed enough to cover whatever the boy carries." It happened faster than Sunny could follow. Hero moved, not like a soldier, but like something built for this, and a moment later, Scholar was on the ground, one leg broken clean by the flat of the sword. Before the scream had finished leaving his throat, Hero stomped on the other. The sound that followed was not something Sunny would forget easily. Scholar's shriek became a howl, then a sob. Just like that, he was finished. The brutality of it was so far removed from Hero's usual grace that Sunny felt his blood go cold. This man was frightening in a way the tyrant hadn't quite managed to be. Hero looked at Sunny with an expression of complete calm. "Wait here." He grabbed Scholar by the collar and dragged him back down the path, disappearing behind a rock outcropping. A few moments later, terrible screaming echoed through the wind. Sunny stood alone, trembling. This is too much. Hero returned as though he had simply stepped out for air. He sorted through Scholar's pack with no ceremony, discarded the firewood, shouldered the bag, and turned. "Let's go. We need to move." Sunny nodded and fell into step behind him, not knowing what else to do. Two of them now. It felt strange, lonesome somehow, in a way that surprised him. He hadn't liked either of the other slaves. He hadn't trusted them for a moment. And yet, walking this narrow path with only silence and Hero ahead of him, Sunny felt the absence like a hollow thing. He was thinking about that when Hero spoke without turning around. "Don't feel guilty. The decision was mine alone." A pause. "If you knew the things that man had done, actually, it's better that you don't. Trust me when I say that killing him was an act of justice." I wonder which one of us actually feels guilty. These people, always reaching for righteousness while doing the worst things imaginable. The hypocrisy of it made his skin crawl. Hero got no answer. After a moment, he chuckled quietly. "You don't like to talk, do you? Fair enough. Silence is gold." They didn't speak again. The sun was going down. At this height, it painted everything, sky, cloud, stone, in deep layers of crimson and scarlet. Below them, a sea of maroon clouds rolled past the mountain in slow, heavy waves. Stars were beginning to show themselves at the edges of the darkening sky. It was, in its way, beautiful. Sunny could only think about how cold it was going to get. Before the last of the light disappeared, Hero found them a shelter, a narrow crevice in the mountain wall, hidden behind tall rocks. Inside, it opened into a small cave, tucked away from the wind. Sonny reached for the firewood. Hero stopped him with a shake of his head. "No fire tonight. The beast is too close." Cold and dark then, but better than the alternative. Sonny settled against the cave wall. Hero sat across from him, quiet and withdrawn. For the first time, the young soldier had not cleaned his sword when making camp. That small detail said more than anything he could have spoken aloud. The sun finished setting. The cave went completely dark. For Hero, that meant blindness. For Sonny, nothing changed. He sat and watched the other man's face in the dark, handsome even now, and for the first time, visibly troubled. After a long silence, Hero spoke. "You know, it's strange. I can usually sense a person's presence in total darkness, but with you, there's nothing. You're like one of the shadows." Silence answered him. "Are you asleep?" The question drifted through the dark. Sonny sat with it for a moment. Something about the darkness, about the strange closeness of being the only living things on this mountainside, made him want to speak. "Why? Are you waiting for me to fall asleep before you kill me, or will you do it in the morning?" The smile froze on Hero's face. He lowered his head. A long silence followed. "Yes," he said finally. "I thought if you were asleep, you wouldn't have to suffer." A bitter grin settled on Sonny's face, unseen in the dark. Hero exhaled slowly, leaning back against the stone. "I don't expect you to forgive me. This sin will be mine to carry. But if you can, try to understand. If things were different, I would have faced that monster myself to let you go. But my life is not entirely my own. There is a duty I am sworn to fulfill. Until it is done, I cannot allow myself to die." Sonny laughed. It wasn't a warm sound. "Look at you, planning to kill me and still needing a good excuse. I hate hypocrites most of all, you know. Why not just be honest? Say it plainly. I'm going to kill you because it's easy, because I want to live." Hero closed his eyes. The sadness on his face was real. That almost made it worse. "I'm sorry. I knew you wouldn't understand." "What is there to understand?" Sonny leaned forward, anger sharpening his voice to something precise and cold. "Tell me, why do I have to die?"
Hero turned toward the sound of his voice even with nothing to see. "That man was a villain, but he was also right. The scent of blood on you is too heavy. It will draw the beast. You could just let me go. We part ways. Whatever happens to me after that is no longer your concern." Hero shook his head. "Dying in that creature's maw is too cruel a fate. Better if I do it myself. You are still my responsibility." "How very noble." Sonny leaned back. After a moment, his voice came quieter, stripped of anger. "When I first came here, I was ready to die. In both worlds, there isn't a single soul who would mourn me. When I'm gone, no one will notice. No one will even remember I existed." The words sat in the dark without echo. Then something shifted in his expression, visible only to himself. "But somewhere along the way, I changed my mind. I decided I have to survive, no matter what." Hero studied the darkness where Sonny's voice had come from. "To live a life worth remembering?" Sonny grinned. Something dark and certain moved behind his eyes. "No, to spite you all." The soldier was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded, accepting this answer completely. "Don't worry, I'll make it quick. You seem very confident. What makes you think you can kill me? Maybe I'll kill you first." I dapped that. And then Hero staggered. He dropped to one knee, face gone white. A pained groan escaped him, and then he vomited blood. Sonny watched him from the dark, a slow, satisfied smile spreading across his face. Finally. Hero knelt on the cave floor staring at his hands. The blood on his lips caught the faint moonlight filtering through the crevice entrance. What magic is this?" He looked up astonished and turned toward Sunny. Was the thief right? Did you put the shadow god's curse on us? Sunny sighed. I wish I could throw divine curses around, but no. Truthfully, I have no abilities at all. Then, how? That's why I poisoned you. Hero stared at him. After the tyrant's first attack, you sent me to gather water. While I was collecting flagons from the dead soldiers, I squeezed bloodbane juice into each one, except mine. Not enough to taste, enough to kill slowly. Hero gritted his teeth against the pain. Then something shifted in his eyes, realization arriving like a blade. So that's why the other two were in such bad shape. Sunny nodded. Shifty drank the most. His condition worsened fastest. Scholar was not far behind, but you finished him before the poison could. You, though, it was as though bloodbane had no effect on you at all. I was starting to worry. Hero's expression darkened. I understand. He thought for a moment, but back then, you didn't know we would turn on you. Sunny laughed. Please, it was obvious. Shifty would have killed a man for decent boots. Scholar was a wolf wearing a scholar's face. People are selfish and cruel even in the best of circumstances. Did you really expect those two to behave differently when facing death? Hero spat blood and looked up. And you? You? A disdainful look crossed Sunny's face. You were the worst of them. Why? Sunny leaned forward. All humor was gone from his voice now. What remained was cold and clear. I may not have learned much in my short life, but I know one thing. He let the silence hold for just a moment. There is nothing more pathetic than a slave who begins to trust his slaver. Hero lowered his head. I see. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. You wicked little, you really are something, aren't you? There's no need to be rude. But Hero wasn't listening. A strange lightness had come over him. Good. This is good. My conscience will be clearer. What are you mumbling about? Just die already. Hero chuckled, and then fixed Sunny with a stare that had lost none of its clarity. That plan would have worked on a normal man, but my soul core awakened long ago. I have slain countless enemies and absorbed their power. Bloodbane, as unpleasant as it might be, cannot kill me. Sunny turned and ran. Something struck him in the back before he had taken 3 steps. He hit the rock wall hard, a sharp pain erupting in his left side. He screamed, clutched his chest, scrambled upright, and ran again, out through the crevice, onto the old stone path, gasping under the open sky. The stars and the pale moon hung above him, vast and indifferent. That was as far as he got. Stop. Sunny froze. If Hero's soul core was truly awakened, running was already finished as a strategy. Fighting was even less an option. Turn around. He obeyed. Hero stood at the crevice entrance, wiping blood from his face with the back of his hand. He looked more annoyed than anything else. The two of them faced each other on the narrow path, the cold pressing in from every direction. Was it worth it? No matter. Hero drew his sword. I will keep my promise. I'll make it quick. He looked at Sunny steadily. Do you have any last words? Sunny said nothing. Instead, a small silver bell appeared in his hand. Hero frowned. Where were you hiding that? Sunny shook it. A clear, beautiful tone rang out across the mountain, pure and carrying, like a voice meant to travel impossible distances. It filled the cold night air and kept going, out and out and out into the dark. What are you doing? Stop! Sunny stopped. He said nothing. He didn't move. He barely breathed. What was... The bell disappeared from his hand as though it had never been there.
Hero stared at the empty air, then at Sunny, suspicion sharpening his expression. "Tell me what you just did right now." Sunny stayed silent. "Tell me or you will regret it." Still nothing. Sunny wasn't even looking at Hero anymore. His eyes were fixed on the darkness behind him. Hero's eyes widened. What? A massive hand came out of the darkness and closed around him. The bone claws scraped and tore through his armor. Mountain King dragged him back, vast and silent, jaw already opening, the familiar worm-like shapes churning beneath its skin. Hero's sword found the creature's wrist and bit deep, but the tyrant barely registered it. Sunny turned his back to them. He walked 2 steps up the path. Then he ran. Behind him, a desperate scream split the night. A roar answered it. Hero was not going quietly. He never would. But the outcome was already written. Sunny ran and did not look back. "I'm sorry, Hero. I did say I would watch you die. But as you know, I am a liar. Go and die on your own."
A lone mountain stood against the raging wind. Jagged and immense, it cut the night sky just as it always had. The moon bathed its slopes in pale, ghostly light, and on those slopes a young man with pale skin and black hair climbed alone toward the peak. He looked like a walking corpse. His tunic and cloak were torn and dark with blood. His eyes were sunken and clouded. His body was a collection of bruises and cuts and things that had not healed. Bloody foam flecked his lips. Each breath came through gritted teeth, each step accompanied by a low moan he couldn't entirely suppress. He kept walking. He believed the nightmare would end at the peak. He had nothing else to believe in, so he chose this. Step, step, another step. And then, finally, he made it. The summit opened onto a wide, flat expanse of rock and snow. In the center of it, illuminated by the moon, stood a temple. It was enormous. Black marble columns rose above him, covered in intricate reliefs. The pediment, the frieze, the broad sweeping stairs, all of it carved with extraordinary care, the work of hands that had loved this place. Or it had been once. Now the temple was in ruins. Cracks split the black stone in every direction. Parts of the roof had collapsed, letting in the sky. The tall gates had been smashed open as though by something enormous and very angry. Still, Sunny felt something loosen in his chest. "Found you," he said, in a voice that barely worked anymore. He limped toward it. His thoughts were going soft and muddy at the edges. He kept losing the thread of them, reaching for a sentence and finding it gone. There was only the cold, the pain, and the dark shape of the temple growing larger as he moved toward it. He stumbled on the steps and caught himself. Thousands of bones lay scattered around the base of the temple, human and creature both, old and silent. The invisible guardians that had killed them still lingered here, ancient and watchful. One of them approached Sunny as he climbed. It was ready to end him. Then it paused. Something it recognized was coming from this boy's soul, a scent, faint and strange and sorrowful, the scent of divinity. Old grief moved through the guardian's formless shape. It stepped aside and let him pass. Sunny didn't notice. Inside, the great hall opened around him. Cascades of moonlight fell through the holes in the collapsed roof, casting silver circles on the floor. Deep shadows surrounded each one, keeping their distance from the light. Snow and ice covered the ground. At the far end of the hall, a single altar stood untouched, black marble, wide and clean, the only surface in the temple that the snow had not reached. Sunny walked toward it. He had forgotten why he came. There was only the cold and the altar and how much it looked like somewhere he could rest. He climbed onto it and lay down. He thought he might be dying. He found that he was all right with that. He was closing his eyes when a sound came from the entrance. He turned his head, not particularly curious.
Mountain King stood in the broken doorway, 5 blind eyes, worm shapes moving under the skin, drool catching the moonlight. The tyrant moved forward with slow, patient steps, closing the distance between them. What an ugly bastard! Sonny convulsed with a coughing fit, clutching his chest. Bloody foam flew from his mouth and landed on the altar's black surface. For a moment it sat there, dark against the stone. Then the altar absorbed it. The surface was clean again, as though nothing had touched it. The tyrant was nearly at the altar now. His hands were already reaching. A thought settled into Sonny's mind, wordless and heavy, like something arriving from a great distance. He had offered himself as a sacrifice. The gods were dead and could not hear him, but his soul carried the mark of divinity. He was a temple slave, and somewhere, deep in an eternal slumber, the shadow gods stirred. A blessing sent from beyond the grave. The shadows in the great hall moved. All of them, at once, the vast pools of darkness surrounding the moonlit circles on the floor surged forward. Tentacles of black reached out and coiled around Mountain King's arms and legs, wrapping tight, pulling in every direction. The tyrant struggled. It opened its maw and let out a howl that shook the broken ceiling above. The shadows pulled harder. The creature's body ruptured. It came apart in a single violent instant, blood and mass and silence. What had been Mountain King fell to the floor of the ruined temple and was still. Sonny blinked. The hall was quiet. He was alone. And then, soft as breath, the voice arrived. He had slain an awakened tyrant, Mountain King. Wake up, Sunless. Your nightmare is over. Prepare for appraisal. Sonny found himself in a space that was not quite anywhere, an endless black void filled with stars, and between these stars countless threads of silver light woven into a net of breathtaking complexity. Nexuses, constellations, pattern after pattern reaching in every direction without end. He understood somehow that he was looking at the inner workings of the nightmare spell itself. It looked, he thought distantly, like a neural network made of starlight. Was it alive? It was a question people had been asking for decades. The best answer anyone had managed was that it existed somewhere between the categories of alive and dead, sentient or mindless. It was more a function than a creature. But Sonny had no patience for philosophy right now. He was waiting for his reward. A thought arrived, warm and certain. He had received a memory. Puppeteer's shroud, from Mountain King, an awakened tyrant, which meant the memory itself was awakened rank. He almost did a dance. Before he could look at it properly, the void seemed to gather itself, and the spell's voice came, not a whisper this time, but something larger, the universe speaking through the machinery of 1,000,000 silver threads. His trial was over. A nameless slave had ascended the Black Mountain. Heroes and monsters had fallen by his hand. Unbroken, he entered the ruined temple of a long-forgotten god and spilled his blood on the sacred altar. The gods were dead, and yet they listened. He had defeated a dormant beast, Mountain King's larva. He had defeated 3 dormant humans, names unknown. He had defeated an awakened human, Aro of the 9. He had defeated an awakened tyrant, Mountain King. He had received the Shadow God's blessing. He had achieved the impossible. Final appraisal? Glorious. His treachery, the spell noted, truly knew no bounds. Sonny felt his chest swell.
Dreamer Sunless, receive your boon. He was an aspirant no more. A true name settled into him like a title carved in stone. Lost from light. He stared at it. A true name. In the first nightmare. He had never heard of such a thing. Not all saints could claim one. He was an elite. He was genuinely, actually an elite. He was going to be... The spell wasn't finished. His aspect was ready to evolve. Did he wish to proceed? He said yes before the question was fully formed. His dormant aspect, temple slave, began to change. New aspect acquired. Aspect rank, Divine. Sonny fell over. Aspect name, Shadow Slave. He sat on his knees in the void, completely unable to move. Divine. It had said divine. He summoned the runes with a shaking thought and read the description. He was a miraculous shadow left behind by a dead god. As a divine shadow, he possessed strange and wondrous powers. But his existence was empty and lonesome. He mourned the passing of his former master and longed to find a new one. Innate ability, Shadow Bond. To activate it, he needed only to find a worthy master and let them know his true name. Once they spoke it aloud, he would be bound to their will, unable to disobey any command. He stared at that for a long time. Then he pushed past it. A divine aspect was the rarest thing he had ever heard of. Ascended aspects were rare enough to start wars over. Transcendent ones formed the foundations of entire factions. Sacred and divine existed only in myths. The human race hadn't yet reached that high, not in any meaningful number. And he had one. The shadow bond was a problem, yes, but it required someone to know his true name. No one could see his status but him. All he had to do was keep his mouth shut, and no one would ever know to ask. He could live with that. The spell continued. An aspect ability arrived. Shadow control. He read the description. His shadow, it said, was more independent than most. It was an invaluable helper. He read it again. That was all it said. He moved his eyes up to the full status display and stopped. Where his soul core ranking should have been, 2 words appeared instead. Shadow Core. Below that, a counter he had never seen before. Shadow Fragments. 12 of 1,000. Shadow Core. Shadow Fragments. No soul shards. A completely separate progression path. He sat with the implications of that for a long moment. No competition for resources. No need to hunt for soul shards in the dream realm. Complete self-sufficiency if he could figure out how the system worked. And he had already accumulated 12 fragments without even knowing he was doing it. He filed it away and kept reading. Then the spell spoke again. All power has a price. He had received a flaw. He read the name. Clear conscience. He read the description. You cannot lie. 3 words, just 3. The spell, which never wasted an opportunity for a flowery description, had chosen this time to be perfectly precise. Sonny stared at those 3 words and felt the floor drop out from under him. He couldn't lie. He, the person whose entire survival had been built on deception, misdirection, and strategic dishonesty, the person the spell itself had just praised for his treachery, he couldn't lie. And his true name, if he couldn't lie, if his mouth moved on its own and spoke whatever was true, then anyone who asked the right questions could extract it from him. Anyone at all could bind him to their will with a few innocent words and his helpless voice. He was about to scream. The spell spoke instead. Wake up, lost from light. The void dissolved. Sonny opened his eyes to an armored ceiling, the underground vault of the police station, ugly and familiar, and the most welcome sight he had ever seen. He was back. The cold that had lived in his bones through the entire nightmare was gone. The pain from the whip, the shackles, the bone spikes, the broken ribs, all of it gone. His feet were fine, his wrists were fine. He could breathe without feeling something tearing inside his chest. His eyes stung. I actually survived. He looked down and froze. Sitting in a cheap plastic chair beside his medical bed was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen in either world. Short raven hair, eyes the color of winter ice, skin as pale as his own, but where his pallor looked sickly and strange, hers was simply striking. She appeared to be in her late 20s, dressed in a dark blue uniform with silver epaulets. On her left sleeve, a shoulder insignia caught his eye. 3 stars. 3 stars meant ascended. Ascended meant master. Before he could fully process what that meant, the woman noticed him looking and stopped stretching.
What are you looking at?" No warmth in her voice whatsoever. Sonny blinked. His mind supplied a perfectly reasonable answer. He opened his mouth to deliver it. "Your breasts." His eye twitched. He had not planned to say that at all. His mouth had simply moved, and the truth had come out, and now it was in the air between them, and he could not take it back. The woman stared at him for one long, patient second. Then she moved her hand and slapped him across the face hard enough to spin his whole body sideways. The restraints were all that kept him on the bed. For a moment, he saw bright white stars. And ascended. He had just said that to an ascended. She could have removed his head with the same effort. He was getting off lightly. The woman cleared her throat and crossed her arms. "Are you awake now?" Sonny holed his numb cheek and nodded very carefully. "Good. A piece of advice. Don't just say whatever enters your head, especially to women. You have seen a girl before, I assume." "Say thank you," Sonny told himself. "Say thank you and be quiet. I've seen plenty, but no one as beautiful as you." He flinched so hard he nearly pulled a restraint free. The woman stared at him. Then she burst out laughing. "You clearly haven't met many awakened. By our standards, I'm below average." Sonny looked at her with open doubt. She shook her head. "As your soul core develops, the body sheds its imperfections. Strong awakened are rarely unpleasant to look at. Live long enough, you might become a flower boy yourself." She gave him a thorough oversaw. "Well, maybe." A slight pause, and then her tone settled into something more official. "In any case, welcome back to the land of the living. Congratulations on surviving your first nightmare, Sleeper Sunless." Sleeper Sunless. He turned the words over carefully. It was strange to have a title attached to his name. In the outskirts, people mostly called him boy, brat, punk, or hey you. Now he had a rank. Though the correct term technically is dreamer, the spell used its own vocabulary. But humans had adapted their own words for those infected by the dream spell. Carriers who had just completed the first nightmare were called sleepers, because when they entered the dream realm next, their body would fall into an unmoving slumber while their spirit was gone. That slumber could last days, weeks, months, however long it took to find a way out. After that, if they returned, they became awakened in the fullest sense, entering the dream realm every time they slept, living a double existence between the two worlds. And beyond that, for those who chose to go further, there were masters and saints, ranks of power that felt almost mythological from where Sonny was currently sitting. The woman rose from her chair and approached the medical bed with practiced efficiency, beginning to undo the restraints. "I am Ascended Jet. Call me Master Jet. I have been on watch duty for the past 3 days, monitoring your nightmare." 3 days. He had been in there for 3 days. Sonny was reluctant to open his mouth for any reason, but there were things he had to know. "Master Jet, I have a question." "Go on." "Why would a master be assigned watch duty? Isn't it somewhat beneath your position?" Jet gave him a flat look. "Smarter than you seem. Recently, this sector has seen a large number of gates opening. Most of the local awakened are wounded, occupied with cleanup, or dead. It's always like this close to the winter solstice. Beyond that, there are very few awakened who work directly for the government the way I do. It's the least lucrative and least glorious path one can choose. Long hours, constant risk, no fame, no wealth, held together only by a sense of duty." She raised an eyebrow. "Would you give up wealth and recognition for that?" "Say something diplomatic," Sonny commanded himself. "Say something diplomatic right now." He looked Master Jet directly in the eyes. "Of course not. I'm not an idiot." He wanted to sink through the floor. She stared at him for one long moment. Then she smiled, a slow, genuine one. "See? I knew you were smart."